knew there was something wrong there.
There
All
we
right. All right. We are going to try and make sure everything is working since we had a little bit of a an issue on Sunday. And we will be beginning in just a little more than 8 minutes. All right. That looks like that is going. That works right. Means YouTube is good.
YouTube is working.
There we go.
That was a question more than...
Oh. No, I thought you looked it up. Yeah, I think it's working. I think it's working.
All right, I'm going to go to the...
Andrew's there. Andrew with the initial greeting here. Betty Lawrence is here.
Right
That's
there.
good.
There's Andrew.
Good.
Hey, did you watch that music video that Andrew made with all of our kids?
I haven't seen it yet, but I bet it's
Ooh.
awesome.
Good job, Andrew.
Look forward to watching that.
It was delightful.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here.
Betty, we sure miss you. We wish you could see you face to face.
Let's see here. There we go. Is that what I sound like? No. Stop.
It is. It's exactly it. Is great. Something's going down downstairs.
Something is happening downstairs.
Yeah, we'll just pretend like that's not.
You guys can't hear that, right?
You guys hear Rylan's kids? Deacon was kind of hitting a wall today. He was a little on the grumpy side, but
Not literally.
no. Well, he might have. I don't know. He might have, but hopefully he will recover. I know.
That's going to be fun to open. I want to see what
Yes.
happens.
Let's see.
Might
Water
explode.
doesn't.
Nope.
All right, I got it.
Good. No explosion.
Let's see here. We can get rid of Andrew there. Yeah, so we had trouble on Sunday with the YouTube stream. So grateful everybody's been patient with us, and I'm sorry if it didn't work for you on.
It started working about halfway through.
It seemed
halfway
like
through.
it was really only about 15 minutes. But,
Really?
Yeah, because I had that's because I got the recording, later, but and I was grateful that we had some songs that we could kind of work on. I'm glad it worked. There is, if you missed it on Sunday because of that, if you missed Sunday's worship, we'll say this again as we start, but there is a full version of it on YouTube now.
But don't go watch that now. Stay here.
No, stay here. Yeah.
Stay here with us. Watch that later.
That's
It'll
right.
be there waiting for you.
I'm thirsty. I just went and did my exercise before.
We saw you walking around.
Yeah,
We decided
walking
to do a lap.
Oh, you did after when I was done?
We did. Real fast lap before class.
I got
Pre-class lap.
Let's see how many laps I got in. I don't really remember. I bet it says if I just pick it up. Let's see. I went. Yeah, here we go. I walked 3 3/4 miles, almost 4 miles.
So that would be 8 laps?
Maybe I'll do another one. Yeah. I'll get another lap around the neighborhood here in just a little bit, and we'll do that.
Nichols!
Good to see you, Bobby and Rhonda. We're glad that y'all are here. And I can report I have had visuals on your son's Matt's house. I have seen Jack playing. He seems very happy. Katie Grace, I know last night when I was doing my walk last night, Katie Grace was enjoying looking at the stars. She was looking at like a constellation app.
Yeah.
And just showing her wonderful curiosity outside. So they are doing well now. Rhonda, those are the only of your children that live in our neighborhood, so I can't really, the others. We'll have to call them and find out. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're doing great too. I talked to Bob. I talked to Rob a few days ago, but I need to talk to him again. See what's up. Oh man. So did you look at the Tennessee coronavirus numbers today? I think we're starting to see some of the effects of the increased testing that they're doing.
I saw. Okay, so the last time I looked, it looked like we were leveling off. But if you look, like we level off at the end of every month, kind of, and then it bumps up again. It's weird. It does this weird, like it looks like you're leveling off. So I saw that, and then I saw we have 21 in coffee, but that's all. That's all.
Yeah, about 400 something new cases in Tennessee today. So it's a little bit more. We've been having about 200, 250 or something like that. So a little bit more new cases today. So we bumped
up again. That's not a leveling off.
But I think if you kind of take an average of the last few days, it's still pretty. And that may very well be due to some of the free testing that they've done over the weekend.
So, they did free testing over the weekend.
Yeah, they had a lot of sites where they did like drive-through free testing, which they're doing over at the health department here in Tullahoma. I think they're also in they were at the Administrative Plaza in Manchester. I don't know if that's every day or not. I noticed that you filled out the survey.
I did. Had I not filled that out before?
So if you we'll need to say all that once we actually
did
start properly here in a few minutes.
Okay. Too. This is what's interesting if it'll show it.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, it is an interesting.
So like at like this before the last week, it looks like it's leveling off, then it bumps up, and then you get like the week before the end of the month.
Yeah.
No, maybe it's like every 2 weeks. I don't know. And it's like,
what's the difference in those two? Can you tell which chart is which? Like, what's the red line? What are the bars?
The red line, I think, is the total cases.
Oh, that's the total, and then the other is like new cases a day.
Yeah, I think the other one is how many new cases. So like you see, we get less cases and it levels off, and then boom, it jumps up. And it starts coming back up. And then we get less cases, and it looks like it's peaking. So here it looks like it's peaking. But
it'll be soon, Rhonda. It'll be
next week, it's going to jump up again. And we're going to start peaking up again.
Yeah. Well, I expect you'll have more of those results from that weekend testing, too. So we'll see what that means. And hey, Belinda, Belinda Land, I drove by, my wife and I drove by your house on our bicycles, and I almost, I could have honked. It wouldn't really, I don't have a horn on my bicycle. I have like one of the.
You don't have a horn?
Kind of horns.
You guys know what to get Steven for Christmas.
No, don't do that. Because that's just another noise making thing in my house.
That's right. 23 in coffee now.
Pam, good evening to you. Hope you're doing well. We need to all be together. We did have today. We had the senior adult Zoom for the first time.
No way.
Yes, and so we had. I don't know how many. We had about a dozen. Let's see, about 10 seniors, and then Gary and Andrew and I were on. I'll say that's probably a little bit more because there were several couples that were there together. But it was really fun. It was really, really fun. It was there were some zany moments in it.
I bet.
Yeah,
a little jealous.
It was a fun thing. So we'll pitch that here again in a minute. We're really working on like what our kind of weekly calendar is going to be like.
We have been, I'll say Abby Grace and the girls have been pen pals with Elaine Ragsdale over the past.
Oh, Elaine's a neat lady. Yeah.
A week or two, and that's been really nice. They've really enjoyed that.
That's great.
Elaine.
Okay, everybody, we are live and we are ready to go. Welcome to class on Wednesday, April the 22nd, or whenever you're watching this, as it's recorded out there. And we've enjoyed being in this space, studying together on Sundays and Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. If you are, if you want to watch with us on Sunday mornings, this is when we have worship, and we have some extra stuff then that we don't have on Wednesdays.
Unless you're watching it on YouTube.
Oh, we did. It was a little delay. Sorry. Sometimes that happens. We were really on a streak of not having technical difficulties.
We had some really great weeks in a row, and then on Sunday, YouTube just decided it didn't want to play
with
video, and so we played all the songs at the beginning.
Yeah, we were really flustered. I don't know if everybody can notice that, but we all those things were supposed to be spread out during the service, and then we were like, we have to have time to fix whatever's wrong with YouTube, and so thankfully we were able to put those songs back to back. They've done a really, really good job with those songs each week.
Yeah, and if I wasn't scrambling trying to figure out the problem, I would have been able to hear the ones
so,
Sunday. Great job.
This last week I was with them as they recorded in the auditorium, and I'm telling you guys, it was so beautiful. It was really wonderful, and really have loved, of course, our three singing sisters there. That Melissa and Jennifer and Sheila are so good, and Gary's been singing with them for quite some time. But also having Lauren and Shelby is really awesome, and I love that they're joining in that legacy. Yeah. It's really a wonderful, wonderful thing. So hey, listen, that's on Sunday mornings. We usually have more of some other things like that. We have some other pieces that are part of our worship time together. It's really, really been special. So I hope you'll join us as we do that on the weekend. And in the meantime, when we're on these Wednesdays, we would love to have you joining us here too. And we try to spend on Wednesdays a little bit more time, just like we would in a class.
Yeah, we'll be reading the comments. If you guys have questions or comments or whatever, we'll try to read those out, or we may be able to flash them up on the screen. Or
sometimes we can do that. Yeah.
So, just pour those out. Yeah. And
so it's not just us; it's us all together. So listen, we would love that. Yeah, there you go. It's Karen and Betty greeting everybody. Danny, it's so good to see you joining us too. I wonder, are Danny or Yogi and Julie there with you today, or are they skipping on us today? We'll see. Sometimes they
you'll get a reply in about 20 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Her mom lives just a stone's throw away, and so cool. they often will join and all sit together. Hey, listen, we have been studying for some time in our Sunday morning, and then the sermon time in our classes and the sermon time. We've been working through the Gospel of John, and we finished all that this past Sunday. Finished that long study in John, and so tonight we're going to set out on something new, and I'm looking forward to it. I know you've been looking forward to having it revealed what it would be.
And I just found out
as we study. So we are going to look at, we're going to do a study for the next 10 weeks, okay, on the story of God, okay? And what we want to do, what we were doing in the John study, this is very useful sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to kind of get your microscope out and look at one particular passage, right? Like a particular book of the Bible, and really train in and learn. In fact, I tell people that are new students of the Bible often that the best way to get started with the Bible, because it's a big book, it's a exasperatingly long and sometimes complex book, or rather it's a library of books. Yeah. There's 66 books altogether, and it can be kind of hard to get a handle on all that. And so often I'll tell people, if you really want to
Revelation.
If you want to become... No, that's not what I say. No. I say pick one small book, okay? Like pick a book like James or 1 John or something like that, and learn what it's like to kind of live in a small book and gain some mastery over that.
That's a great idea.
Mastery is a terrible word to use when you're talking about the Bible. Yeah. We don't master the Bible. The Bible masters us, right? But
so not Revelation, though.
No. I don't think that'd be the way I'd go, right? Something that lets you kind of live in it and learn to practice it out, okay? But it is good. So it's good to do that. I really believe that that's a good practice for us to kind of zoom in with a microscope and really take a particular book or text and really just work it, mull it over, and find the threads that run all through the books and let them speak in their own voices and that kind of thing.
When you do that, though, you don't get a sense of like connection between the books, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, you're often missing that, and so. Sometimes it's good that instead of to be looking with a close microscope, sometimes it's good to broaden out and maybe like use like a wide angle lens,
like a fisheye lens.
A fisheye lens, yeah, one of those lenses that makes it look like it's kind of you're in the middle of a bulb or something, and. Or the way that I think about it, it's good to pull back and like look at the whole story of Scripture as from a timeline, as if you were looking down on a timeline, okay? And you can kind of see.
Oh, we do that all the time in class. We draw a timeline on the board.
Oh, and so tell them about the class you teach. So we're in adult class or class here. But.
Okay, well, yeah. So on Wednesday, we teach me, Paul Ritter, Joel sometimes helps us out, Joel Abrams. We teach the 5th graders. And usually at the beginning of the year, just to gauge what they know about the Bible, we'll put a timeline on the board, and then we'll say, fill it out. Tell me a Bible story, and we'll figure out where to put it on this timeline. And so they'll just start spitting out Bible stories, and we'll say, okay, well, was David before Jesus or after Jesus? And then they'll have to figure that out. And was Abraham before or after Moses or whatever? And so we put those on a big timeline, and some classes are really good at it, and they fill it all out. And I've had classes that were like, we don't know any Bible stories. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to see as they come along, and then you do it multiple times through the year and see what all they can, how much more they can fill it out.
Well, that's a great exercise, and for kids, it's a great exercise for adults too. I was talking with somebody the other day about how there are things that we do with our kids as they learn the Bible that we don't necessarily do with adults. Okay, and we like memorization was the thing that we were talking about, and sometimes we were talking about it in the Endure retreat, the group that did that material, and we had there's kind of this place where like if some of that stuff, if you kind of missed it as a kid, it's really hard to come back and learn it as an adult, or as is the case sometimes with our timeline, if you learned it but maybe missed like a piece of it, it's hard to kind of see and to fill that in. Okay, and so we're going to do that. We're going to kind of do some timeline work. And kind of see how the whole story is laid out. So think of these as kind of like putting points on the story of God along the historical timeline. And I'd say it would be a kind of a fun exercise, just to hear what kinds of points people would choose. Okay, so if you have to kind of confine yourself, I really enjoy doing this exercise where you say confine yourself to 5 points on the story. That's it. That's all you get. Okay. Or confine yourself to just 3 or 4 and say, okay, tell the story of God in 4 moments. Okay.
Gotcha.
And kind of pick this out and say, where are those times where like the whole story twists or shifts? And I wouldn't know if I would say that it turns, because there's so much continuity in the story. Okay. But it is important to kind of identify those kind of key turning points where the story takes on new dimensions or new angles, okay, or things.
Yeah, there's definitely like momentous occasions that aren't outside of the rest of the timeline, but they everything else kind of hinges on those moments, like God calling out Abraham.
Yeah, absolutely. There's several, and if you kind of think about so the number is kind of arbitrary, right? Do we pick 4 moments, or do we pick 10 moments, or do we pick 20 moments?
Weeks.
But we're going to do 10, okay? And it may be, I think this is kind of an interesting thing to talk about as we go. It might be that the 10 that I've selected for this, there may be 2 or 3 that you say, I don't know if I would put it in exactly the same way, or you may say there's these 4 or 5 things that are being left out that you really ought to consider. Think through that as we go, and as we lay out the 10 pieces that we're going to do. I want you to kind of lean into those and push against them a little bit, okay, and say, well, that's a good one, but what have you considered what the role of this one is? Okay. And let's kind of explore that a little bit together, because what we're really doing, we don't have a place in the Bible where it says these are the 10 most important things that have ever happened. Rather, we get the whole story. What we get is this, right? Like, God didn't give us a study Bible.
But there are people in the New Testament
that's a good point.
Preach sermons, right? And they don't hit everything. They hit certain specific points.
That's a great
like in Hebrews, maybe.
Yeah, in Hebrews, or several points in Acts. Okay, but it's also worth saying though that they don't always choose the same things.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and so they're doing that work. In fact, we might say that they're kind of giving us an example of this work, not as these are the holy 7 things that will always be mentioned, but they're kind of showing us what it means to do that work of looking back in the story. And so you get one, like Stephen at the temple may tell it a little bit different than Peter does.
Well, he's got a different audience, right?
That's right.
So that's probably part of it.
Yeah, a different audience, a different purpose in what he's telling. Yeah, and so we're kind of doing our work now. Everybody has to do that. Everybody has to kind of filter through and say, well, so what is the story as I understand it right now? Okay, and then kind of where do we see in each of those places, like in Acts or in Hebrews, they also do a good job of they do a good job. Good job, Bible writers. I wasn't sure if you were going to pull it off, but you did a good job. No, that's ridiculous. They do. You can see them doing the work of not only articulating what the points are, but also showing their audience where they fit into that story.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to try to do that.
Well, yeah, we're going to do two. We're going to ask two questions at every point. Okay.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about what it is, what the narrative piece is. But then we want to ask two important questions. We want to say, what does this moment in the story, what does it tell me about God? And then we want to ask about ourselves too. Okay, we want to say, what does it tell us about humans or the people of God? Okay, and there's lots of other questions. Again, confining ourselves to two questions, right? So there are lots of different questions that we could ask very usefully of all these texts. Okay, but those two will get us a long way down the road.
Yeah, I think it gives a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah. And they're good. They're just good exploratory questions. I think you should always take a text from the Bible, and you should always really asking what it says about who God is and what God wants. I mean, that really gets you a long way into the story. And then how do I understand myself and my community and my place in the world around me. Those kinds of questions really do. They kind of work on you after a while. You keep asking those questions, and you get more and more pieces of understanding as time goes. So anyway, we're going to start today. We're going to. I don't think there's any mystery about where the first one is, right? Because we're not going to start in the middle of the Bible.
Start at the beginning.
We're going to start at the beginning, and so we're going to look into Genesis 1. Okay, and so we're going to be in Genesis 1. And
what a great beginning of a book.
It really is.
Genesis 1. It really, right? Yeah. Just as a literary, it's just a genius kind of beginning to a book. And obviously, it's our Bible, right? It was inspired, but
yeah. So here's the way I want to articulate the thing that's coming here. Okay, and then we'll kind of read it. Okay. This is the language I want us to use. God's story begins with the creation of a world full of life and humans who bear God's image. Okay, I'll read that one more time. Okay, God's story begins with the creation of a world full of life and humans who bear God's image. Okay, so that's the starting point of what we have in the story. Okay, now if we kind of work on that a little bit and we start thinking about what the pieces of that are, let's not do all that without having the text with us in front of us. Okay, so let's read. We're going to read Genesis 1. Okay. And it's a long story, but we're going to read through the first chapter, and then we're going to kind of talk about it for a bit. Okay?
Okay.
So you want to start with?
Sure.
Go for it.
I'm going to read from your Bible so we don't get on different versions or whatever. Okay. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day.
And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And so God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome, and it was so. And God called the dome sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. What's the third day?
And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning the third day.
And God said, now we're in verse 14 of Genesis 1 here. And God said, let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them up in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day.
And God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky. So God created the great sea monsters, and every living creature that moves, of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day.
And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind. And it was so. And God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. I didn't read that correctly. Go ahead.
Then God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them.
God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. God said, see, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and you shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Let's go on a few verses here into chapter 2. And thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of the heaven and the earth when they were created. All right. So there's the opening story of creation. Okay, it is the story of how God speaks the world into being. Okay. So let's kind of begin working on this story a little bit. If we say that this is the beginning of the story, right? This is the beginning of the story of God, but it's not the beginning of God. Okay? It's just the beginning of what we know of
We don't
God.
get that story.
No, we don't get that story. Maybe there is no story. There is just God is already on the scene in the beginning. God is that from which everything springs. Okay? It says that in the first verses says that in the beginning when God created the heavens and the earth, and then it says that the earth itself is formless and void. Okay,
I don't understand what that means, to be honest.
Yeah, well, so first of all, let's kind of say if those things go together or not, right? It seems to me that the creation, that there's this first moment that God creates heaven and earth. Okay, and there's something there, but it doesn't have shape to it. Okay, it is a picture of chaos. Now these two words, there's two great Hebrew words, right? Tohu vavohu.
Yeah, tohu vavohu. I know those.
Yeah, those are great. You should always use those on
is that the
dinner parties.
That's the formless and void.
Like, without form and void. Yeah.
Wasteland.
Yeah. It's wasteland. It is. It's chaos. Okay, it is the everything is murky and out of there's no shape to everything. Yeah, and
there's water, right? There's
water,
there
is,
which is kind of associated with chaos anyway.
That's right. So it says that well, it's not just there's water, but there's also darkness. Okay.
Yeah.
So it says darkness covers the earth, and that there is this like formless, endless sea. Okay. And the story of creation in Genesis is God calling. God makes the heavens and the earth, and He calls out from this body of water. He calls out from this kind of amorphous blob. He calls these ordered things out of it. Okay. And the contrast, I mean, everything that we're going to have contrasted is here in this text, right? It's the darkness and formless and emptiness. Okay. Orderless and scarcity. Okay. We can say like, just vacuum.
Yeah. Okay. There's nothing living for sure, right?
Yeah,
there's
right.
Just, there's water and water's kind of dangerous.
Yeah,
and it's chaotic. It's always moving. It's just the kind of the epitome of
it's unstable,
chaotic, unstable. System,
dangerous, and especially in this age, this is an age in which all that stuff is. Yeah, Karen says like a black hole of mystery. Leave Karen to give us a poetic turn of phrase. We appreciate that, Karen, and that's exactly right. It is. I mean, it is that. It is this kind of unstructured existence, and so we start off, and God is going to begin to very systemically shape the world. Okay, it says God creates the world. I think we are meant to understand this, and there's other places where it's clear, where Bible is clear about this, but that we're supposed to understand that God does bring all this stuff out of nothing. Okay. But here the emphasis is not on like the trick of making something appear out of nothing. It is taking what does not have form and giving it shape. Okay?
Ordering it.
Yeah.
Kind of ordering the cosmos.
Yeah, and we'll say too that it's not just like an aesthetic shape, or maybe it is aesthetic shape, but it's also about like a moral shape too. Okay, this is the language that we're going to have going into the story. So, so here we go. We're going to get into the first day, right? And in the first day, we have God speaks, and that's really what changes the whole thing. Is the speech of God, and the speech of God initially says, "Let there be light." Those are the first words, and I can't help but think of. In this text, I can't think of some of the stuff that we've seen in the Gospel of John. Okay, like Jesus is still talking about darkness, and people coming out of the darkness in the light, and
especially that first chapter, right? It's all about the Word and the light, right?
Yeah, there's that, and then the conversation with Nicodemus, right?
Yeah,
remember kind of at the end of the conversation in chapter 3, in John 3. He talks about people who love to be in darkness because their deeds are evil, right? And darkness and light have this. I don't know if they're inherently good or evil, okay, but they carry this kind of poetic value of good and evil with them, right? And so what we see here is that there's when God speaks into it, He's already kind of giving the world. I mean, that's not an accident. That's what it starts with, right? That's something that has this kind of moral quality to it. And so God is already bringing something. And of course, God characterizes, or it describes the way God perceives or judges it, right? He says that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and God saw that the light was good. And then He separates the light from the darkness. Okay, there's this the act of creation is a distinguishing act. It is saying here's darkness, and now there's something different than that. Okay, which I think creative people would say that. I mean, that's part of what happens when you create. Okay, I think when you design something, okay, when you build something, you're giving shape. You're giving a this is this is not, or at least you're pointing to the shape that exists within things, right? And so here in this moment, God definitely the great artist, okay, is creating, is distinguishing what exists in creation.
Okay. Do you kind of add what needs to be there or take away what doesn't need to be there?
Yeah, just separate out.
Separate them out.
Yeah, sorting. There's some sorting that goes on here.
Rachel has a good comment. It says it's easy to understand why people assume the earth was the center of the universe as it was created first.
Yeah.
So you could definitely read through Genesis and say, well, obviously the earth's the center of the universe, right?
Yeah. That's true. There is some truth that we have a lot of description of what of the creation of the earth, and it is kind of built. And Rachel's right to point this out, that it's kind of layers, right, kind of radiating out. But at the same time, I would just point out that the phrasing in the language here at the beginning of the chapter, and then at the beginning of chapter 2 as well, is in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so it kind of is. So you're right, but there is a sense too that all these things are happening. But when in the actual narrative of the building of creation, right, it does start with this little rock, this planet. Okay. C.S. Lewis has written a really great book. If you're really interested in that that kind of understanding of cosmology, and particularly when I say cosmology, like an understanding of the world and its place in creation. C.S. Lewis wrote a really neat little book called The Discarded Image, okay, that speaks about this kind of worldview of a creation that's ordered by the things that are above the earth and things that are below it, and it's really worth it. It's not one of it's not on the list of Mere Christianity and the Narnia Chronicles and things like this that are very commonly read. But The Discarded Image is a really worthwhile book. It's a short book, but it's worth.
He wrote a lot of short books.
Yeah, it's a great little perspective.
Good short books. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's a good comment, Rachel. Appreciate that. So as we kind of go on, let's read in verse. We're looking at verse 6. Well, God called the light day, the darkness called night. There's this naming feature that happens as well. All right. And there's evening and there's morning and there's first day. So light and dark kind of set up the clock that's going to be kind of running through creation here, through the story. And then in the next couple of days, on the second and third days, we get some really interesting stuff. Right on the second day, we have there's this separation of the water. So at the beginning, we have the separation of light and dark. Separation is the creative thing right here. Okay. In the second day, we get the separation of waters above and waters below. Okay. And so some kind of atmospheric water. Okay.
Is this where they kind of looked up at the sky and they saw that it was blue, and they said there's a dome up there that holds the rain?
Yeah.
And sometimes it opens and the rain comes through.
Yeah, I think that's the worldview there. And this is going to change. Something that shows up in the Noah story too, by the way. In the Noah story, it's as if God unleashes what has been pent up there, and all that water comes crashing onto the earth and floods it. Okay, which is it's important to see that that's an unmaking of this story, right? In the Noah story,
creation reversal.
Yeah, it's kind of a reversal of this story of creation. In creation, God has separated these things. Okay, and in the flood story, they're kind of allowed to kind of collapse back together, and to great devastation.
Right.
Okay. But anyway, that's what happens in the second. So we have this continuing cycle of separation, and we have again this kind of phrasing about evening and morning. This kind of cycle of it. Okay. All right, so then we get into on the third day. I don't think we have that. It is good on the second.
Are you comfortable with evening and morning without a sun and moon? Is this something that you've thought about a lot?
I'm comfortable with
that
it.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So that may be a question that somebody has out there, and that's probably the place that we really begin to see that this is. And I want to be careful the way I say it, because there's a lot of language tied up in for values. Okay. We have to respect what this writer's doing and what I think it's not trying to do. Okay. And I think that this writer does a pretty awesome job of describing truthfully. God gives us something very important and truthful here about the nature of creation. Okay. But I don't think this is meant to be a mechanic's guide. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, I am comfortable with this picture of creation that God has, light comes from God's own being. Okay, but there is no kind of meaning here about like when the sun goes behind this part of the earth and it's rotating around. That's not what's being said here. So I'm comfortable. I've become really comfortable with that in my life. It's just that what the story is being told here. If at those points where we say, and maybe this is playing too fast and loose with it, but at those points where we say, hey, wait a second here, that's not how it really works. Okay, I don't think the scriptures are meant to like tell us, well, you just turn your brain off and just this is how it works, even though you don't understand how it works, right? I think more what's happening is at the places that we come to that, I think we can say maybe that's not what the author is trying to tell me.
Yeah.
About, right. And so it maybe just makes us do a double take and listen again to, okay, what is the story telling us? Yeah, Karen says that she thinks it's the glory of God shining through the darkness. That's what I mean when I talk about like, and she's quoting from John there, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think that it's meant to be like the light just comes from God. Okay, but at the same time, I just don't. I think if we get kind of hung up on the mechanics of it, it's kind of like watching a movie for the plot holes. Like at that point, you're really not enjoying the movie, right? Yeah. You're not getting the point of what the story is either. Okay, so we get into the third day, and the third day is about separation again. Okay, it's about separation from the dry land from the water, and so the water below is separated. We get the earth itself, the land. Comes out. And then when it does, we kind of have a little bit of a twist in the story then, because then God, we get God saw that it was good, but we're not really done with that day yet. Okay. We get that in verse 10, and then we get another, and then God said, okay. And so God's speech on this day is not finished. It's not completed. Yeah. And instead, God brings out vegetation, okay, plants, and every green thing, okay, and it, God sees this; it's good, and there's plants and trees and every green thing, everything that has seed, right?
And He said it was good twice. He says it twice in this one.
Well, the day, yeah. So we get it in verse 10. Yeah, we get it about the separation of the earth.
Yeah, and then the animals.
Yeah, and you mean the plants?
No. Oh yeah, the plants.
Yeah. But we do get that. We get both.
It doesn't say it about the sky. Is that weird?
I've got a theory about that a little bit. It doesn't show up on the second day. So the second day, the separation of earth of the firmaments is not. I wonder if that kind of looks towards the Noah story where that's going to be undone. Oh. I wonder if it was,
maybe, yeah.
Just
saying, well, this is going to be used for something that's destructive.
Yeah. So whatever happens in the Noah story that changes the location of the firmament, that's not a revocation of the goodness of creation. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Karen says that God has headlamp on.
That's a good way to think about it. Maybe. Do you work with a headlamp, Karen? I'm going to regret asking this. Karen, I bet I feel pretty strongly Karen does some of her art with headlamp on. So when we get into the third day, though, we have really the beginnings of life, right? Like vegetation is life, and so we get that, and what's happening. Though, is that the vegetation is not necessarily regarded as life in the same way that the plants and animals are later. It's regarded a little bit differently. Instead, it kind of forms the context. Okay, and the way theologians talk about this chapter a lot, and I think it's pretty accurate, is that these first 3 days provide us the context for what's going to fill them later. Okay.
Yeah. So they line up 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, and 6 kind of.
Yeah, correct.
Are related.
And they're
1 and 4, 2, 1 and 4, 2 and 5, 3 and 6 kind of.
Yeah, that's correct. Together. So the first day is light and darkness, or day and night. Mm-hmm. Okay, when we think about that. So the fourth day is then all the things that are going to fill the day and the night. Okay, it's the sun and the moon. and the stars. The greater light, the sun, the lesser light, the moon, okay, the stars in the sky. And they are the kind of the beings that fill that context of day and night. That's the way that we kind of look at the order in the story. And we have some idea of ruling here too. It might be worth pointing out that the sun and the moon rule over the day and the night. They're given that role. And that's the fourth day. Okay. And the fifth day we get the things that are going to come that fill the second day. So the first and third. Okay. And then now the second and fourth. No.
Fifth.
First and fourth.
First and fourth.
Second and fifth.
This is hard.
Yeah, you gotta get these numbers. It's real easy if you see it. The second and fifth, okay? And so the second day, we have the creation of the water, the separation of the waters.
Yeah,
okay?
With the dome.
Above
the
and
sky
below.
dome.
And so what we have all the things that are going to fill the waters below, and we have all the
monsters.
things that are going to fill this out. Yeah, we get sea monsters and fish, all the creatures, just creatures of the sea. And then we get...
And birds.
The birds, yeah. And so we get the things that fill these different domains, okay?
Yeah.
And of course that sets us up for the... Well, I'll tell you what, before we move on to that, right? They have they're charged with a task, okay? So we don't necessarily think of that as like the fish having work, right? Or the birds having work to do.
Oh,
okay?
But they do.
Yeah, they do. You kind of missed that.
I knew that came later, but
yeah,
it's there too. Be fruitful and multiply. It's
yeah,
their job.
They're told to be fruitful and multiply and to fill the waters of the sea, and it says let birds multiply on the earth. Okay.
He doesn't need to tell the plants to be fruitful and multiply.
Right. They just
because they're literally fruit. They can't do anything else.
They're yielding seed, right?
Yeah.
So, but here, I think this is a good place to kind of pick up, right? Because I don't know if you notice, right? But if we stop here, on the fourth day, we have the sun and the moon, and they are given the role of ruling, right? And in this day, on the fifth day, the birds and the fish, they're being fruitful and multiply. So, okay, so if we foreshadow a little bit, what creature also does those things?
All of the rest of the creatures. Ruling or...
yeah. Be fruitful and multiply. And the ruling too. Yeah, who else does ruling?
The humans do the ruling over the other creatures.
That's right. Okay, so we're kind of foreshadowing towards a creature, a being that's going to have all of those roles kind of in it. Okay? And so, but at any rate, that's it. So it's good. Okay. Also, I just love, man, I'll tell you what, one thing that you ought to do during this quarantine time, if you haven't had a chance to do it yet, is to get on one of the streaming services and watch one of the documentaries about like how full the oceans are of life. I mean, it's amazing. Okay. And it is, we are still at this place where like, I mean, we know more about the moon than we do about the deepest parts of the ocean.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because, I mean, it is an environment so far from our gaze. And there's a part of me that is just often just filled with wonder about that. Okay? How much the creation delights in being full of life, even in those corners that we can't see it. And that is to the pleasure of God, right? God saw that was good, even when we can't see it like at all, right? So there's something about the mystery of creation there that's, I just think, really, really wonderful. I also think about birds. Was it you I was talking about this, but like birds are truly amazing.
We were talking about this the other day. Who were we talking to?
I don't know. I don't
someone who was dissing birds. I think.
There was some. I don't know who it was. I know a couple of people that don't like birds. And I understand if you got birds freak you out. There's some primal thing going on there. That's fine. But like, if you like, there are times when. And I really make not just chit chatting here. Okay, like there's a profound point, I think, to being able to marvel at something in creation and say, that is like truly amazing the way it works. Okay, man, you see like little swallows or kingfishers or something like that, they're like darting around. They somehow figuring out, and they're like navigate. Their navigation stuff is I know you guys make lots of neat stuff out of the base, but
they have like built-in GPS in their brains, right? They migrate.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the long scale. I'm saying the short space stuff about how they can like, dart around with each other. I mean, I see like a couple of mockingbirds like chasing each other around the neighborhood or something like that. Yeah. It's amazing what they can do.
I love watching a big flock of birds and like a really huge flock of do and how they just move together and kind of know and they don't all run into each other and kill each other.
Yeah, it looks like the fish do that too, right? Like a big swarm of what do you call that? What do you call that? Not a flock. A school. Yeah, a big school of fish that's kind of all moving, and it's a magical thing. Donna says that birds freak her out. So we will use that. We will save it. We'll put that in our pocket and we will use it to our advantage someday, Donna. We will be revisiting this topic sometime. Okay. But yeah, I mean it's amazing. I just marvel at creation. I mean, these things that are created and their bone density and all that kind of stuff, and their muscle to mass. I mean, it's an amazing thing that God's created, and the wonder of it, the beauty of it, it's astounding. It is good.
It's very good.
Yeah, no, it's not very good. Not yet. Not this. I mean, it is, but like in the story, we don't get that yet, right? Okay, so and that's all in the fifth day. We get the sky and the seas being filled, and it is the filling of these domains. Okay, so the separated waters are now filled up with life, and in the sixth day. Okay, we get our last domain is going to be filled up. So on the third day, okay, so now the third day and the sixth day are parallel. On the third day was the creation of the land. The land comes out, but it's separated from the waters. But then it's also vegetation. And so those things, the garden earth becomes the context in which the animals are placed. Okay?
Yeah.
And I've always loved the description of this. I just feel like it's so colorful. Bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind. And it was so. And God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind and the cattle of every kind and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Just love that picture. Okay, it's the things like crawling all over each other, and it's remarkable. So there's that, and then of course on the rest of we have in verse 26, and we're still on the same day. We're still on day 6. It says, God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps over the earth." Okay, and then later on, so that's dominion over the other things that were created on day 6, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to get, so God created humankind in his image, and the image of God he created them, male and female he created them.
That's like a little poem, right?
Yeah, it's
Put right in here in the middle of this.
It's just a little couple of poetic phrases about what's happening. And then we get, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." So we get, be fruitful and multiply and fill over we go back in time. Okay, to day 5 and the things that were above and below in the waters. Mm-hmm. Okay,
because that's what they're doing. They're being fruitful and multiplying. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So and being fruitful and multiplying, but then also having dominion over those.
Oh, things. Having dominion. Oh, I messed up.
Yeah. Having dominion. We have dominion over those things. Okay. Yeah. Now, interestingly, we don't get dominion over the sun and the moon. Okay, no. They've been given rule. Remember, in day 4, the sun and the moon rule over their dominions, day and night.
Over the day and night, yeah.
Uh-huh. But we don't, so humans don't, they're not in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, but they are in charge of all these other things that are being fruitful and multiplying. Okay. And of course, they're going to be in charge of the ground too. We're going to talk about that in just a second, right? So after that, we get, and God says, "See, I have given you every plant." Okay, mm-hmm. We get this. Now we get the plant. Every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in it, and you shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, every bird of the air, and everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life. That's an important phrase, right? The breath of life. I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that he made. And indeed, it was very good. Now we can say it's very good. Okay?
Yeah.
And there was evening and there was morning the 6th day.
So is this saying that the intent of creation was for everything just to eat the vegetables? And nothing to eat each other. Like that's like the really perfect garden scenario.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the way things are here. There is an explicit time later when man is given permission to eat animals. Okay. You know when that comes?
Peter.
Testing here. No blanket. Oh, that's good. No, there is that. They can eat like any kind of food. Yeah. There's a clean, unclean thing going on there. Okay. Yeah. No. It's at the end of the flood. At the end of the flood, Noah is told, I am now giving you humans, you can now eat of the animals, but he tells them not to, he gives them kind of some restrictions about blood.
And then they get more restrictions later, right, in the Torah?
Yeah, that's right.
Or I guess this is still the Torah.
Yeah, but in the law. In the giving of the law. Yeah. That's right. So there's kind of a progression here, a dietary progression, okay? But at this point, we do have this picture of special harmony. Okay. Yeah.
We got some comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. Oh man, they may be talking about.
Andrew said bees shouldn't be able to fly.
I think he's talking about the bee movie there.
I think he's afraid of bees.
Andrew is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Must be.
Oh, don't make bee puns. Those will never end. Okay, so this is kind of our story of creation. Okay, and let's talk about it. So now we said we're going to come back with the question. So now we have just really time. I love this text. I could talk about this text all day long, really.
Oh,
but
multiple days.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. But let's talk. Let's kind of take our two questions to the text. Okay, so what does this text, as it is, what does it tell us about God? I mean, it has something to say about God, right?
He's creative.
Yeah, I mean, it's to start there, right? Like, and this is like a very central thing that we know about God, about that all of humanity. Do we? Okay, I thought we lost our feed there for a second.
Me too. Okay.
It's a central thing that we know of humanity is that humans that we wake up in this world and we say, who made this? Who is it that did all of this?
Yeah.
Okay. Not all gods were like that. Okay, so like some of the pagan gods, they existed in this world, and maybe one god made it or didn't, you know. But it was more like they were functionaries in this sort of thing, right? But in our story, it's the God that made all of this. Okay, and he didn't just make it; he made it good, right? Like not like it's well built. Okay, not like it just functions, but like. There's something beautiful and good about creation.
So like you said, this is talking about the moral creation or something.
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
so. Yeah, a moral order.
And that's what you mean. Like in the beginning, if God had created the heavens and the earth and it was formless and void, and then he put the people on it, that would have been immoral. That would have been bad, right?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, what I mean is that God looks at it and God judges it to have the quality of goodness in it. Okay, that's what I mean. Okay. And yes, presumably because God didn't make it that way. Okay, but if God had made it to be, particularly dangerous
so there could have been things that he could have done that.
My foot is like completely stuck in the stool. I cannot get out of it. I've been like trying for the last 5 minutes to get out from that stool. Yeah, but okay. So let's talk specifically about that. Like, what is the character of creation that makes it good? And I think
it still is dangerous too.
Yeah,
right? We're not told monsters in the sea.
That's true, and we're not told explicitly what it is that makes it good. But I think we can kind of guess at a couple of things. Okay, the first one that I think is present in the text is that it is full of. There are things of danger in it, but it's also full of the conditions for life. It's full of food. Mm-hmm. It's full of these contexts in which these beings can live and flourish, and it's filled with life. Okay, the creation itself is abundant with bursting it from the seams with life in the very beginning, and that's what's good, right? In creation, God uses the language of gift. I'm giving you all these things for food, right? And I think
that's even more apparent now that we have like put out telescopes and started looking at other planets and things and seeing how like desolate the universe is as far as like what we can see, right? This is very good. It's very rare to see.
I mean, it is a
kind of what we have here.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely an amazing. The mechanics of God's provision in the world are remarkable, and we do live in a place where there is scarcity. Okay, we'll talk about that part of the story a little bit more next week. Hint, hint. But we do come to a place where there is this real shocking sense of the abundance of creation. I mean, that's the way that the story plays out. So Pamela is watching from Washington State before, okay? And she says, I'll put this up for everybody, okay? I think this is a really great comment. This comes on YouTube, so I'm going to put it right here. Here we go. I'm going to put this up so that our folks watching on the Facebook stream can see it too. She says, it seems to me that when God, that when He says it is good, He's saying He takes pleasure in it. And I think that's right, okay? And I think that is beginning to give us hints about the sorts of things that God takes pleasure in, right? God takes pleasure in the giving of life. That's part of the goodness at work here. And in this creation of this world, and I love the language, the creation is teeming with life. Right, the seas are teeming with life,
and I think He knows it's going to give us pleasure. Right? Yeah, it's going to sustain the things that He's created. So Absolutely. It's like a self-sustaining, maybe not a completely self-sustaining system, but you know what I'm saying. It's something that He created that will take care of the things that He created.
Yeah, and it's there's like this beauty to it, right? There's this beauty to a creation that works together. I really hate that, like in our world, just like in every other matter it seems like we're such a race to divide ourselves over different things, right? And the relationship that we have to creation is one of those things that is, I think, grossly divisive. It's politicized in ways that I think are unfortunate, because when it comes down to it, this is the world that God has made, and God has placed us in it, and has meant it for a gift, and that's like a really important thing to own, to take stock of,
to be stewards of.
Yeah, to be stewards of. And when God gives us, God puts humans in it, and then He tells us to be fruitful and to multiply, but then He gives us responsibility in it, right? To have dominion, to subdue and have dominion. And although that language is not meant to like go beat it down, okay, like it's our servant.
No,
okay?
So like the root of dominion is like dominate, right? And it's not like you're not supposed to. So when we think of dominate, we're like, I'm going to destroy it.
Yeah. No.
But that's not what that means.
It's to rule it. It's to have dominion means to have rule.
And what does a good ruler do?
A good ruler helps his kingdom flourish.
Did we not talk about that last week in John? Right?
Yeah, that's right.
The good master is the servant.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a great insight, Ryland, that like John, that part of what Jesus is doing is He's teaching humans to come back to what it means to be servant rulers. Mm-hmm. That's a great insight. So all that is at work here in the text. So that's one of the things, right? The goodness of creation and its gift of life that's full. I think that's something we can learn about God. The second thing I'd say is notice how orderly it is. Well, God is a God of order. Okay, and this whole scheme, I mean, it's even laid out in this kind of poetic scheme where you get the day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and that kind of poetic stuff is no accident in the Bible. And our Hebrew writers, especially the Old Testament, they loved using structure to kind of help say their point, right? Yeah. And part of the point of this text is that the God of whose creation story is being told here is not a God who's just like. It's not like some kind of pagan story where like he like throws down a lump of clay and something springs out of it. What happens here is that God like crafts creation. He crafts it and creates through like separation and distinction and making order into the place. That's what God's creative act is. And when God places humans into creation, that's part of what our role is too. Our role is to bring order. So anytime we're at work bringing order into creation, a good order. Now it's hard. You have to make some discernment there, right? Like just chopping down all the trees so that they stack up neatly in your basement or whatever. That's probably not what it's talking about. That's probably not what it's talking about. Yeah, but like bringing it to like helping creation be so well ordered that it is fruitful and it like brings about life.
Trimming a tree versus chopping it down.
That's right. Pruning it so that it can be more fruitful. That's a very good.
And Andrew has a good point here. Creation's goodness connects to Luke 19:40, where it says all creation will cry out in worship.
Yeah. The rocks will cry.
Yeah. And that's, is that the one where if you don't worship, the rocks?
Yeah. It's near the triumphal entry, and as Jesus is coming into Jerusalem there, and they kind of fuzz. Some of the rulers say, well, you need to tell these people not to cry out Hosanna to you,
Yeah.
And he says, I'm telling you the truth. If they weren't doing it, then the very rocks, the stones would cry out, Yeah. At any rate, those are the things that I think we learn about God in the story, right? That God is a God of order, that God is a God who gives life, okay? And God has intention for creation. He intends for it to be this beautiful place of life-giving. And he intends for humans to be joining him. So let's think a little bit about what the humans are. What does it say about us? What do we learn about ourselves in this text?
We have some responsibility.
Yeah. We have
a couple of jobs.
Yeah, we have a couple of jobs. We have some responsibility. We also have this there's this innate nature that we have as people who are made in the image of God, and that's important to recognize too. It is important to note that every person that we meet, our first ground of dealing with them, is not their behavior. It's not whether they're on our side or not. It's not in competition with them or being able to use them for our own means or anything like that. The first thing that we know about a person, before we know, are they for me, are they against me, any of that kind of stuff, right? The first thing that we know about a person really is always that they are made in the image of God. That is primary to everything else that we're going to learn about people. Okay, now, it also, would they have responsibility, which they may be violating. They may be creating violence. They may be dishonoring God by bringing death into places where there's meant to be life. Okay.
We talked about this in our Sunday morning class before. I know maybe not everybody here went over this, but I remember one class we had, and we talked about what it meant to be made in the image of God.
Yeah. Right? And some of it is the responsibility.
Yeah, part of it is that we have the same kind of responsibilities that God had of creation and stewardship of the earth and things like that. Other ideas are that we have the kind of consciousness that other animals and that certainly plants don't have, right?
Well, this whole vision of goodness that God has,
So it doesn't necessarily mean you look like God. God has arms and feet and a nose. It's more than that.
Yeah, it's these things that we share with the divine being, and it's important that we see ourselves as having responsibility and dignity as the image bearers of God. God values us greatly. Now, this whole story is not about us. This is about the heavens and the earth. It doesn't get to the end of the story and say, and that's how people were created. It gets to the end of the story and it says, and that's the account of how the heavens and earth were created.
Yeah.
Right? Now, and then the second chapter, we're going to get a story about how humans are created more specifically.
It's almost like a second creation story, right?
Yeah. But I think it's important that we have a role in creation, but we're not the whole thing. Okay, we have a role in creation. Okay, so we're going to come back next week, and this is step one. Okay, the first is that God creates. He creates a world full of life, and He puts humans in that creation to bear His image and be His partners in creation. Okay, so that's
what makes Him happy.
Yeah. Well, we got 9 more. All right, and like I said at the beginning, our 9 might not be your 9, but we're going to kind of explore these, and we want to take a look over the long term over what the whole story of God is. Okay, so I hope you'll join us every Wednesday night at 6:30.
I just want to say these are your 9. They may not even.
You may have different.
My
yeah.
9,
well, maybe afterwards we'll go through and do your 9.
Sure.
It'll be a 20-week study.
Well, it will probably be the same.
Yeah. We'll see. I may convince you by the time we're done. Hey, listen. If you haven't yet, if you would do us a favor and click like on the video wherever you are, it will help us kind of know who's here and help us reach out to you. Also, too, please know that we've got lots of different things going on with our church and our ministry right now, and we appreciate you joining us with us in those things. Of course, the big flagship thing that we do is our Sunday morning gathering. It'll be at the same spots, on whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook or on Periscope. Is that a rhyme? You think? Whatever. If you're on no matter what platform you're in, you can catch us on those things. Coming again on Sunday morning at 9:00. Our church announcements are on the email. If you would like to connect with our email, we've had several people, by the way, that have done that. If you would like to connect with just the news of what's going on among our people in the congregation, we don't share a lot of that because of privacy stuff online. But we do put a lot of family notes in our email. So send an email to cedarlanechurch@gmail.com. Let them know that you want to be on that email list, and we'll get that to you as quick as we can. All right, we love you guys, and we look forward to being together physically soon. But in the meantime, we're glad that we get to share this space and do this, and we'll catch you guys. Let's pray before we go. Oh Lord God, giver of all good things, who fills creation with your good order, who blesses humans with responsibility and also with the provision of the things that we need for life. We pray that you would help us to be good stewards of your creation, to be people who honor you in the way that we treat each other with dignity as image bearers of God, and the way that we express our dominion over the world, which we believe is your world and your good creation. Oh God, we know that all things are not yet as you wish for them to be. We know that we ourselves fail and are part of that. We pray for the day when all will be made new, when humans will walk with you in your good creation, and when the heavens and the earth are remade, and all is indeed as you wish for it to be. Until that day comes, may you teach us to be faithful, help us by your Holy Spirit, and may our eyes be enlightened to the things that you're still at work doing in our world. In Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.